Article that I published today over at HartmannReport.com is titled, "Dear Democrats, Don't Negotiate with Terrorist Lovers." I am referring specifically to the Republicans. Yesterday, with much fanfare, Joe Biden came out with 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans and said, "We have a deal on infrastructure." Now, it was a measly little, about a little less than $200 billion a year over a 5 or 6 year period deal. It wouldn't have done much. I mean, it's a drop in the, well, it's more than a drop in the bucket, but, and over on the Washington Post, for example, today, Jennifer Rubin, the former Republican conservative columnist for the Washington Post, is going on and on about how, see, this proves you can do things that are bipartisan. Isn't that great? But about an hour after this was announced by President Biden, Lindsey Graham came out and said, "What are you?" Well, actually, let me get the exact quote because it's got some bleep words in it. He said, "There's no way." He said, "You look like an effing idiot now. I don't mind bipartisanship, but I'm not going to do a suicide mission." Right. The Republicans are ready to compromise. You know, there is a messaging war going on right now. On the Republican side, they are laying out 6 simple messages that they are hammering day after day after day. You can listen to Fox News for 1 hour any time of the day. You will hear all 6 of these messages in all probability, certainly during prime time. Listen to Right Wing Hate Radio. It's all over there. You look at the right-wing websites. These are their messages, the Republicans' messages to the American people, as we're heading into an election in 2022, that if they can capture just a few more state houses, they can call a constitutional convention and rewrite our Constitution. And they might be able to take back the House and Senate, which brings a screeching halt to everything the Democrats are trying to do. Merrick Garland this morning, by the way, our Attorney General, announced that he's going to sue Georgia for suppressing voting rights. Where's he going to sue them? At the Supreme Court. And who's on the Supreme Court? Oh, my God. But anyhow, here are the 6 messages that the Republicans are putting forward. Number 1, Democrats are evil baby killers. They delight in killing babies. They drink their blood. They put baby parts in vaccines. And they're so evil that Republicans are obligated by their patriotism to block every piece of legislation, every judge, and turn Democratic presidencies into failures. That's message number 1. Message number 2, Democrats want to replace white people in their jobs, homes, and wealth, and are willing to give those white people's jobs, homes, and wealth to illegal immigrants and black people via socialism. Message number 3, Democrats want white people terrorized by black and Hispanic criminals and plan to get there by, quote, defunding the police. Message number 4, Democrats accuse Republicans of trying to suppress the vote when the Democrats, in fact, are the ones who committed massive voter fraud in the 2020 election, and they plan to do it again. To save America, Republicans must stop them by tightening voter eligibility and removing fraudulent people from the voting rolls in those fraud-prone black neighborhoods. Message number 5 from the GOP. Democrats want to turn your children into homosexuals and drag queens, their language, by changing laws, bathrooms, sports, and school curriculum. And number 6, Democrats want to make your children hate themselves and you because you're white. And they're doing this with critical race theory at every level, from the military to the media to your local kindergarten. Now, none of those things are true. Not one of them. But I can tell you, Republican voters believe them to be true. So what is the Democrats' message? Well, we heard it last night from Joe Biden. The Democrats' message going into the 2022 election: we like working with Republicans. They're credible, trustworthy, patriotic, and they're our friends. Yeah, that's a message that's going to win. That's going to get us lots of votes. I mean, and that was, the essential message of last night's announcement. And with 5 Republicans, right? Like 5 Republicans is going to make something happen. And as I said, Lindsey Graham said no. Meanwhile, you've got this guy over on One America News who's saying he's got a final solution to the problem of Democrats stealing the 2020 election. Just execute them. Honest to God. He's calling for the execution of thousands of Democrats. So who's doing this negotiating with the Republicans that's going to help us win the election in 2022? I say that sarcastically. You know it's going to help the Republicans. It enhances their credibility. These, by the way, the 5 Republicans who were standing next to Biden, 100% of them, all 5 of them, voted against a January 6th commission. They don't want to investigate the terrorists aligned with their own party. These are our partners. I mean, basically, so the group that they represent is called the problem solvers. The problem solvers are an offshoot of the old No Labels group. The No Labels group was started by Joe Lieberman and a bunch of hedge fund billionaires. And, you know, their mission is to blow up anything that the Democratic Party wants. And there's a bunch of Democrats who are in on this. I mean, you know, Mark Pocan, who's a regular on this program, when he first went to Congress, he wrote a whole op-ed about this over at Huffington Post that I linked to in my article today, the Hartmann Report. Mark Pocan, Congressman Pocan, good progressive, got sucked in the first day in Congress, problem solvers, no labels. Hey, Mark, come on with us. We can work together and make the. Oh, and Mark is like, okay. And then he says, by the way, who's funding your group? And their response was, and this is a verbatim quote, we can quietly remove you from our list if you want. Pocan says, I was duped. So because of these problem solvers in the Democratic caucus, now there's one possibility here, by the way, that this is, that I'm giving them too much credit. And I'll get to that in just a minute. But because of these so-called problem solvers in the Democratic caucus, the message now that the Democratic Party is sending to Democratic voters, in the hopes that they're going to get these, you know, Democratic voters, particularly young people and new voters who haven't voted before, because that's really what the Democrats need. The message that they're sending to these people is basically this. We'd love to get things done that 70 or 80% of the American public and even a majority of Republicans want. You know, things like a public option, ending student debt, taxing the rich, raising wages through unionization. We'd love to do those things, but we can't because our Republican friends object. And we have to bow to their filibuster because our Republican friends are so credible and trustworthy and patriotic. Really? When Mitch McConnell wanted to get Beer Bong Brett on the Supreme Court, he changed the filibuster. All the Republicans voted to change the filibuster and say, hey, you know, the filibuster no longer applies to Supreme Court justices. And then he canceled the summer recess and spent, 3 months jamming judges into the federal courts, right-wing, hardcore judges. It is time for the Democrats to say enough is enough. It's time for Schumer to start and Biden to start twisting some arms seriously. There are things that these problem solver Democrats want, and there are things that they fear. LBJ knew how to do this. He got the Civil Rights Act passed over the objection. Every single Democrat from the South hated it. He got it passed anyway. He got the Voting Rights Act passed. He got Medicare passed. He got Medicaid passed. He got the Great Society. He got all kinds of programs passed. Food stamps. It can be done. You've just got to stand up on your back feet and say enough. Because if Democrats can't demonstrate to the voters that they can take names and kick ass, if they can't demonstrate that they can change the filibuster the way McConnell did for Beer Bong Brett Kavanaugh, if they can't demonstrate that to the voters, then you're going to have a repeat of 2016, where voters, looked at the candidates and said, I don't think I need to vote this year. Hillary's got this in the bag. Everything's good. And they don't show up. And with this election, this 2022 election and the 2024 election, it's not just Democrats and Republicans on the ballot. It's democracy itself. So Biden, Schumer, and the problem solvers in the Democratic caucus need to wake the hell up, respectfully.